Hi everyone, here's the Book Chemist once again. Today I'm reviewing The Eight Mountains by Paolo Cognetti, a book that's been on my radar for quite a while. I know that it garnered a lot of acclaim both in Italy and abroad, especially after the movie adaptation came out. But a book where I was also a little skeptical. A couple of things held me back for a long time from experiencing it, namely its author and its subject matter. I should stress that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the author, with Cognetti. For what it's worth, I don't really know too much about him, but having sampled some of his writing and his essays, and having enjoyed them too, having appreciated them, I got the feeling that his style was maybe a little puritanical, a little harsh, a little opinionated, and I just wasn't sure that his fiction would resonate with me. This, once again, is very much and entirely a matter of personal preference. I tend to enjoy and appreciate writers who waver perhaps between arrogance and self-loathing. I wonder why. And even the more puritanical writers that I like, the Americans such as Thomas Pynchon or H.P. Lovecraft, they tend to compensate for their steelier opinions with quite a heavy dose of either humor or straight-up goofiness. Now, I don't think I was wrong about Cognetti's voice. It definitely comes across as rather harsh and righteous in The Eight Mountains, a bit in the vein of Cormac McCarthy or Hemingway, but I found it nonetheless convincing and compelling, and I'll talk about it more in a second. The other reason why I fear that the book would not be right for me is that this is very much what it says on the tin. It's very much a book about mountains. I'm from Monza, near Milan, in northern Italy. I grew up very close to the Alps, and growing up, a lot of my friends and family members loved nothing more than to go to the Alps, go on hikes, walk mountain paths, climb remote peaks. And I never got it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I'm very much of a city kid. Central Milan or central Paris will be the kind of places where I go when I feel like having a good time and recharging my batteries. I don't go much to the seaside, but I definitely feel the charm and the fascination of the sea. But mountains, I just don't get it. I found them cold and annoyingly steep. Not for me, if you will. That said, several friends whose opinions I respect and I appreciate a lot were recommending the book. So I decided to dive in and give it a try. And you know what? It's great. It's fantastic. I had a great time. I loved it. It's a very cool and very human, very warm book, in spite of the harshness of its style. And I think the reason for that is that while I keep describing Cognetti's style in these stern terms, I believe that his narrator is always fairly clear and candid about his own limitations, his own emotional limitations, his stuntedness in matters of human relationships. In this sense, the book feels very much Hemingway-esque, but it's also anti-Hemingway because all of the hero's traumas that you have to tease out of Hemingway and that are hidden behind a veneer of machoism are instead very much to the fore, are very perceivable and very, very clear in The Eight Mountains. At its heart, The Eight Mountains is the story of a lifelong friendship between its narrator, Pietro, a kid from Turin who spends his summers in a remote alpine village, and Bruno, a kid from the village who rarely leaves these valleys in the course of his life. It's a beautiful book about male friendships that manages, as much as a book can, who is about two men climbing mountains and building lodges and drinking beer and sitting in silence. It nonetheless manages to talk about this friendship, about its strengths and its limitations, in a way that avoids the macho attitudes of, say, McCarthy or Hemingway. The Eight Mountains is, at the same time, also the story of its protagonist's relationship with his father, a very wise but troubled man with a strong passion for the mountains, for the Alps, who Pietro is very close to when they're growing up. Pietro and his dad are very close, but then as Pietro becomes a teenager, the two have a falling out and never really recover the relationship. Pietro's father, his passions, his emotional limitations, all the unsaid things between him and Pietro are very much, they felt very much like a presence throughout the entire novel. And to me, even more than it is a book about male friendships, to me, Eight Mountains really shone a light on these types of relationships. It talked very beautifully about these type of relationships between men, where two men really love each other, but they also can't really be in the same room with one another and really don't have a way to talk to each other. Regardless of what a book is about, I'm always interested in fiction that is passionate about something and manages to convey why this given thing is relevant and so important to people, what they find in it, why they find solace and meaning in it. And The Eight Mountains definitely does that. Even for somebody like me, it really conveys this strong passion for the mountains, for this place that reduces life to its purer and simpler terms, this landscape that almost skims off much of the fluff and the nonsense that weighs down life in the city. I really liked The Eight Mountains in spite of all my reservations. So if you are in any way interested in stories about people living remote lives away from society, or you're maybe passionate about nature and about hiking, or you want to experience that Hemingway, Jack London, Thoreau cult of the wild as a sacred space, Eight Mountains is probably going to be the book for you, with the caveat, and it is a positive caveat, that it actually eschews a lot of the negative or outdated sides, such as the exaggerated machoism of some of the authors I just mentioned. It's a great book. I will definitely read more of Cognetti's oeuvre, and I'm curious to hear whether he was on your radar too. I've seen him crop up for sure in bookshops around the UK, and I'd be curious to assess quite how popular he is at the moment outside Italy, because he's definitely enjoying quite a moment of notoriety and popularity in Italy itself. Thanks as always for watching the review. Look forward to discussing the book in the comments as always. Bye everybody.